Hey guys, this is AwesomeJohn22, and today we are talking about this guy right in front of us here. First, though, I'd like to apologize to you real quick for not uploading my vlog yesterday as promised. I know I said it was going to be something big, and that's really where the problem came from. It was a little too big, and I ended up not handling it as well as I wanted to. So I'm putting it off for another week so I can get the work done to the quality that I want. Like I mentioned before, it's something really important to me, and I want to make sure I do it right, or at least as right as I can with my current abilities. Anyway, moving on to the review itself. In front of us here we have Transformers Universe Inferno. Now, this guy is a very popular figure. Most of you, I'm sure, recognized him right away. He's been used several times, remolded, retooled into various characters, most of them exclusives because he is such a popular figure. He is getting up there in age a little bit. Some of his parts haven't really held up very well. He's still great, though, don't get me wrong, but he is from the old 2008-2009 Universe line, which I believe focused primarily on upgrades of G2 characters. So you can imagine some of his parts aren't quite as new as they used to be, for lack of a better term. But you can see here, still a very nice toy. He was, I believe, the very first brand new mold in the 2008-2009 Voyager series of Universe figures. The rest were all retools or repaints or whatnot. And I know that really made him kind of a fan favorite for a while, because Universe was a really good line, but it had a lot of repaints in it. Moving on to the details of this guy, you can see he has a water cannon where most fire engines would have a ladder. This is a reference to his G2 figure, which had a water cannon atop the ladder. You can see he's got some seats molded in there behind the clear windshield. He has clear lights, which is very, very cool, a very cool touch. And where most figures might not have a window or have a painted window, he actually has a clear window there on the side as well, and then some painted windows, but that's to be expected, and we'll see why in a minute. You can see let me adjust my light for a second here. You can see all of these really nice details along the side. This guy is based on a 2002 to 2009 Pierce Contender Series pumper tanker fire truck, rather than a Japanese fire truck like the original toy. A pumper tanker fire truck, from what I understand, is still pretty common. I don't know all that much about them specifically, but from what I understand, if you see an American fire truck, that's the type it's going to be. This one, like I said, is based on a Pierce Contender Series. It has 6 wheels, whereas a Pierce Contender Series would not. Still very cool. Kind of a fictional take on a vehicle, which I know they've done before in several of the more recent Transformers series. His 401 area code here, as you can see on the side, is a reference to the Rhode Island headquarters for Hasbro. And I can't really say much more about this mold. It's a very good mold, one of my favorites. I love that they reused him so often. I hate that I can't afford a lot of the repaints and remolds. I do have Solar Storm Grapple, which was the most widely released of them, I believe. I really like this guy. He's one of my favorite Universe figures, probably one of my favorite Classics series figures, because it's common knowledge that the Universe series is often considered part of the overall Classics series. But yeah, I mean, there's not much more to say about the alt mode. It rolls. It's got really nice wheels. You can see there's actually detail on the wheels. There's some rivets. They're plastic wheels. They roll very well. But he is kind of floppy. His cannon doesn't stay up. His bumper likes to fall down with just a little bit of force. And he is a bit of a panel former, which, at least in my definition of the word, is just kind of one step above being a shell former. He has so many panels that fold in upon themselves and then fold back out to make his alt mode that he is almost a shell former. But it doesn't really do anything to hurt the overall aesthetic of this figure, and we're going to get into that in a minute with his transformation. But really, overall, this mold is just fantastic, especially for an older mold. It really stepped up there. It didn't have any obtrusive gimmicks. Literally, all it has is a very classic firing missile. You can see this water-shaped missile here, which does fire, you can see. As I retrieve the missile that I fired across the room. Very simple. No big, huge mini-con gimmick or power core thingy or whatever, like we've seen in other relatively modern series. Just a simple, basic Transformer, and I love that. He has a very G1/G2 toy feel to him, which is what Classics and Universe was supposed to have in the first place, and that's something that Universe didn't always do right because it used so many repaints from series that weren't even Classic series. They were just other series. You can see here on the front, before I forget to point it out, really nice Autobot logo there. Fire Rescue there. Look at that. Look at that grill and look at those headlights. It's just pretty. It's a pretty toy. You can see there's a little tiny steering wheel in there. And windshield wipers. I love it. I just love the toy. I love the look of the toy. As with many figures, there are some details on him that could have been picked out with paint and weren't. You can see a lot of them along the side here. I don't even have to zoom in. You can just see them. The windshield wipers we just pointed out on the front. There goes his bumper again. That we just pointed out on the front could have been highlighted with maybe some silver paint or something. But overall, this guy is just really cool. Transformation's pretty simple too, as he is very G1-esque. Simply, we're going to start out here with these panels on the sides. They separate and kind of separate out from the figure itself. And that's really just to loosen some stuff up. It's not really necessary to the transformation yet to be doing this, but I like to get them up and out of the way. Like so. Next we're going to come back here. And we're going to take these panels here and separate them from what are his feet in robot mode. And what's really cool about the way the panels are used on this figure and why I don't think it's such a big deal that he's a panel former is how effectively they're used. You wouldn't really necessarily realize that that's his foot there because this panel is so effectively placed. And I like that. Next we're going to come down here to his wheels and we're going to fold them in like so. Very simple. And take this whole thing and bring it up, and you can see his wheels slide into little slots underneath his torso, or what will be his torso, and behind his bumper. Next down here we're going to separate his legs, rotate them around below the knee, as you can see there. Come up here, fold his bumper down. Move up to the top. He's now standing on his own, more or less. He's very back heavy right now, but more or less he is standing on his own. Now we're going to take these bits here, which are his arms, and rotate them forward like so. I'll show you on the other side. And we'll bring his arms down, rotate them into place, and let me actually show you on one of them. Rotate them into place, like so. Take his water gun, rotate it around so that it's kind of an underslung cannon there. Straighten everything out real quick. Next we're going to take these panels here on his arms, fold them up, and actually, there goes the missile again, actually rotate them around, like so. We're going to do the same thing over here, obviously. Bring his arms down into position. Now let's move back a bit. Move up so we can see these big monster panels up top. We're going to take them, fold under, fold over, fold down. We're going to do the same thing over here. Fold this smaller panel under. And this is why you couldn't have clear plastic windows back here, by the way, because this is just a single piece thin panel. Fold this one over, and then fold the whole thing down onto the shoulder. Straighten everything up. You can see now we have the figure more or less done. He is now standing on his own with no problem because now he is not back heavy at all. We're going to turn him around, and there's this panel here, which has a peg underneath that would peg in here in vehicle mode to hold his hips up into place. This is now unnecessary. So after we fold up his head, like so, we're going to take this up and fold it into place to fill in his back. You can see real quick, since I already shot it off by mistake anyway, we're going to get a real quick look at the missile. Very cool clear blue plastic, which kind of seamlessly moves into this clear plastic, showing that it is painted or stained one or the other. I'm not 100% sure, but it looks very cool. It looks very much like water, which it is supposed to be, obviously, and it's very nice. And fits right back into the cannon, of course. But yeah, here is Inferno in robot mode. He does a very good job of not only channeling the G1/G2 rendition of Inferno, but also just the whole Generation 1 look in general. He kind of resembles Optimus Prime with the truck chest. He's got a very G1 Autobot head sculpt, which, actually let me zoom in on that because it's very cool. And there were a couple of different head sculpts used, or head designs, I guess you would say, used on this figure for the G1 toy. This is kind of, it draws a little bit of inspiration from both of the major ones, I think. And it does a really good job of capturing the likeness of the character overall, rather than just kind of picking a side and sticking with it. And I just about knocked my light over. Today's just not my day, huh? You can see all of these details are still present in this mode. There's some rivets there that could have been picked out with silver but weren't. Kind of a shame. Fire rescue is still visible. 401 is still visible. You've got some extra details there on the side. He has this underslung cannon on his right arm, which is very much reminiscent of the fact that his right arm used to be, or his right hand used to be a cannon in the G1 design. No blaster though, which he did come with a blaster in the original toy line, I believe, because he always carried a blaster in his free hand in the fiction, which is a little disappointing, but I kind of get why they didn't feel they needed it with a spring-loaded gun. Very cool overall. Like I said though, he's still a little oldish, so his design aesthetics are still a little oldish. So, I mean, he's not going to be as slick or as, I don't even know how to say it. He's not going to look like a modern figure quite so much. Alright, let's move him in close. I want to show off his light piping if I can get it to work. He has clear light piping on the back. Yeah, there we go. Clear light piping on the back, which again has kind of this crystalline blue color to it, kind of like his water cannon. Whatever process they use to color the water cannon, they also use to color his eyes. Gives it a really good effect because it lets so much light in, and then still manages to look Autobot blue. Very cool. Articulation's great, especially for the times. No ball joints that I know of, except maybe his feet are ball jointed. I'm not 100% sure because they kind of wiggle like they might be. Everything else is just simple rotational joints. Well, his head's on a ball joint. I take that back. His head is on a ball joint. It's a limited ball joint. He can look all the way around. He can kind of look up and kind of look down. He has these kind of hinge joints here on his shoulders, so you can actually position these however you want. And I know for other versions of this mold, people will often position those differently to kind of distinguish the character. His cannon can kind of rotate, though the rotation joint's in an odd place for alt mode. He can move in and out at the shoulder and do a 360 on a ratchet joint. Very tight ratchet joint. He can rotate here below the shoulder, and his fist can rotate even though it's absolutely not at all necessary for it to, which is kind of a perk of it being an older figure back when money was a more abundant thing in the toy industry. His hips are a little odd. I'm going to show you here. They're these, if you can see this, they're on these kind of panels which can move up and down. That is my text message indicator in the background there. They're on these panels that can kind of move up and down rather than a ball joint. I don't really understand what the purpose of doing that was, because it really limits how far out his legs can go. But it's still cool to see articulation there. No waist articulation though, he can't rotate or anything. He does have these kind of odd knee joints as well that are almost completely separate from the leg. But it gives him a great range of motion, so I'm not going to complain about it. Straighten his leg back out. And I already showed you his feet, and that's pretty much it for his articulation. It's good articulation. It's better than some modern figures. And it really makes him kind of stand out, because like I mentioned before, Universe series had a lot of repaints of some of the gimmicky, like Armada and that era figures. And so we didn't get figures with like really good articulation very often. And I'm really impressed. I know I really went out of my way to look for this guy when I was really starting to build up my collection a few years ago. And he was a little expensive back then. He's much more expensive now. I did a quick search on Amazon a little bit earlier and found that he is typically priced between $70 and $100 on Amazon and other similar sites. Now, a frugal enough shopper with enough time and patience could find him for less, I'm sure, on eBay and other such sites. But he is, like I mentioned, he's very popular. And if you don't have him, it's going to be hard to get him for what one might consider a reasonable fee. Size comparison, I realize I've not been doing this recently, so I want to get to it. Here he is, standing next to a modern deluxe class figure. You can see he's much taller. Here he is with a rescue bot, which you kind of have to put one of these guys next to another figure to really get how tall they actually are. He comes up to about Inferno's shoulder. Don't have many rescue bots. They're not bad though. They're not bad figures at all. And let me actually back him up so you can get a better scale. Here he is with not only a good scale because it actually has a quantifiable size, a 3 3/4 inch figure that is also kind of a showing of things to come. This is the Iron Man 3 3 3/4 inch assemblers. Mark 42 armor, I believe, Mark 42 or 43 or something like that. It's going to be the prevalent armor in the new movie. You can see comes up to about his waist. So he's maybe 7 inches tall-ish. But yeah, pretty big. Bigger than some modern Voyagers, that's for sure. He's got an interesting enough transformation, even if he has a bit of a panel former. But let me put it this way. He's a bit of a panel former. His transformation, though, is also interesting and very nostalgic, because it is very reminiscent of a lot of G1 transformations, which I think is a huge plus for him. It feels like you're transforming, say, a G1 Optimus Prime or something along those lines. And that is definitely a plus for any figure. Overall, I've got to give a verdict on this guy. I'd say if you can get him for a reasonable price, or if you have the money to spend on him, and I do mean legitimately you have the money to spend on him, not, the kind of money to spend that you give to your significant other as an excuse. But you really have the money to spend on this guy. Go for it, get him and add him to your collection. If you don't, there are newer versions of the mold. Solar Storm Grapple is almost the same mold. He's got some head remolding and some arm remolding, but he's a lot easier to get nowadays. He's still relatively expensive, but he's not going to be as expensive as this guy. I was lucky and I got him back before his price really jumped up. That's going to be harder to do nowadays. Just kind of use your own judgment. I do think he's worth getting if you can afford him, though. Let's put it that way. And yeah, there's really not that much more to say about this guy, so I'm just going to go ahead and sign off. This has been Awesome John 22, and I'll see you guys later.